What's up, VC? It's Steve again, Harmless Rebel, and it's time for part 2 of my country music update. First of all, playing in the background, actually, a lot of people have never heard the Willie Nelson version of this. This is the original recording of this song. Patsy Cline heard this and decided to record it, and it became basically a mega hit. Crossed over into popular music and was all over the country and popular music charts. But again, the demo sessions, it's all recordings from the early 60s of his. Excuse me. Allergies. So we left off in the last video with Hank Williams Jr. So let's go ahead and start with Hank Williams Jr. As I mentioned in the last video, the early 70s is my favorite era of his, and this is one of my favorite albums of his, period. This is 11 Roses. And this is just really him at his best. Again, I like his stuff from the late 70s and 80s when he became a little more popular, but the earlier traditional country stuff is really where it's at, and this album is just phenomenal. Definitely one of his best. Next up, speaking of best, not only is this one of Waylon Jennings' best albums, this is generally considered one of the top 2 or 3 best country music albums of all time, and it's definitely the best outlaw country album of all time. This is Honky Tonk Heroes from Waylon. Every song on this album is absolutely amazing. They're all classic songs. What's funny about this album is that it's Waylon Jennings' best album. Waylon Jennings was one of the most prolific writers, songwriters of the 70s and 80s, actually the late 60s as well. People were buying his songs left and right. So many people have #1 hits because of him. And the funny thing about this is almost none of this was written by Waylon. Almost all of it was written by Billy Joe Shaver. I would love to have the album, Billy Joe Shaver's album from this era with a bunch of these songs, but it's pretty much impossible to find a copy of. But and even this one, as popular as it is, I rarely see it in the wild, and usually when I do, they're pretty trash. So to find a really nice copy of this, I was really stoked. I've been looking for a copy of this for at least 5 years in good condition, and I was super stoked. And I picked it up for like $7, man. I was blown away. But it's a must-have if you're into country music or outlaw country. It's one of those albums that you just have to have. Next up, I don't know why it took so long for me to check her out. It may be because she kind of went the pop route later on, and I remember her pop songs. They didn't do much for me. But this is Absolute Torch and Twang from Katie Lang and the Reclines. Katie Lang has one of the most beautiful voices, and her country music is absolutely phenomenal. I was really blown away by this album. This may be one of my top 10 favorite country music albums. It's that good. This is a really good album. And I've heard that the 2 albums before this with the Reclines were even better, so I really want to check those out. But they're a Canadian country music band. Some people call them alt country. I think it's more straight up country music, but this is just a classic album. Like I said, I wish I would have checked into this band earlier. I think, again, her pop leanings later on kind of threw me off on her, but this album's phenomenal, and I highly recommend picking that one up. Next one, this is actually country rock, and I picked this up a couple months ago, and I've given it a couple of spins. I can't believe this band didn't get bigger, especially during this era. This was 70. I think it was 72 or 73 when this album came out. And it's got no date on it, but this is really good Southern rock. Very much in the vein of Lynyrd Skynyrd, the Allman Brothers. You get a little bit of all of that. Great album. If you run across a copy of this, pick it up. I've run across it a couple times. It's always cheap. I just, the day I found this, I didn't find nothing else, so I grabbed this one too. And I'm really glad I did. I really dug that. Really worth checking out. So this next one, I hear people talk, I see this band's albums all the time, and I always pass them up. I've never known what to expect, and the main reason that I bought this one was because it's signed, and I ended up really liking it. It's country swing. If you don't know what country swing is, it's country music mixed with swing music. But this is Asleep at the Wheel, and this is Framed. A really good album. And it's signed by Ray Benson. I don't know if you can see it right there on the arm. Ray Benson is the main guy, the driving force behind Asleep at the Wheel. And I think he's one of the only guys that was there from beginning to end. I shouldn't say end. I think they're still together. But this says to Kim and Jeff, I gotta hand it to you. Ray Benson, and he's get it, hand it to you. But really good album, and I'll definitely check out some of their. This is from 1980. I've heard their earlier stuff is a little bit better, but really good album. Sorry, I'm still laughing about it. I gotta hand it to you. Next up, one of my all-time favorites in the world, Waylon Jennings. It's Only Rock and Roll. This is one of his 80s releases, I think. Yeah, 83. You got It's Only Rock and Roll, Lion Legends, Let Her Do the Walk-In. Let's see, No Middle Ground, Lucille, Angel Eyes. So, it's Waylon. He didn't put out bad albums. Really nice album from George Jones. This is the best of sacred music. Obviously, his more religious tinge stuff, which there was quite a bit of. But a really nice hits album. If you're a George Jones fan, definitely worth having a copy of. Next up, I've talked about her more times than I can mention. I'm a big fan of everything she did through about 79, 80. This is Tanya Tucker. Just some straight up classic country music. Would You Lay With Me in a Field of Stone, which was a huge hit. Not only was it a huge hit, it was written by David Allan Coe. And never, that may have been the first big hit that he wrote. But 1974, just a really good album. That was a huge hit for her. But How Can I Tell Him is on here. Bed of Roses, obviously. Let's see. Old Dan Tucker's Daughter is a great song. The Baptism of Jesse Taylor. But just a really, really good album. But that song, Would You Lay With Me in a Field of Stone, is a great album, or a great song. And like I said, I didn't know that was written by David Allan Coe. I was reading in the liner notes, and I saw that, and I was really shocked by that. Next up, this is a newer band, and I think they've gone since then, this album, more of a folk route. This is a Canadian band, country folk. This one is more country tinged, but this is White Horse. Really beautiful duo. I really dig this band. I'll leave a link down below for they do a remake here of I'm on Fire. Phenomenal. Really good band though. And if there's any other videos, I'll put some links to them below. Definitely one that I recommend checking out if you've never heard of them. Next up, one of his least popular albums that is full of really amazing songs that were really badly done. This is Rainbow from Johnny Cash. This was, I don't know what they were doing here. It was a gold stamp promo that somebody cut the gold stamp off of. But, man, this is an example. You hear a lot of people talk about 80s country music being horrible. And there was a lot of great country music coming out in the 80s. You had George Strait. You had Garth Brooks making his debut. You had Dwight Yoakam. I mean, there was some phenomenal stuff coming out. But what happened is during the 80s, all these classic country music artists decided they wanted to change their sound up. They wanted to go for that 80s sound. And they added synthesizers and all this crazy shit to their music and just destroyed their sound. And that's kind of what happened here. Every song on here, had he just done it with his guitar and his band, his 3-piece or his 4-piece, would have been phenomenal songs and they would have been hits. But he didn't. He brought in synthesizers. He brought in electric guitars and it just ruins it. And I don't know if it's him or if it was the record label that pushed him to do it, but this is an album where literally 5 of these songs could have been huge hits for him. But because of the way they produced them and the music itself, they just completely destroyed the songs. Next up, again, Johnny Cash. This is From Sea to Shining Sea. This is just a really killer album. And this one, but a lot of these are really, I would say over half of these that I've shown in this video and the last video, you can't get in any other format than vinyl. And that's true with a lot of the heavy metal that I show too, especially a lot of the private press stuff. A lot of this stuff, the only way to listen to this stuff is on vinyl. It's not available in cassette or CD. And it's just gives you, or streaming obviously. So it gives you a really good reason, if you're not a vinyl collector, to start collecting vinyl. I mean, you just miss out on it. There's so much stuff out there that you would never be able to get. Let's say you're a huge Johnny Cash fan and you want to have all of his albums. You literally can't have half of his albums on CD. They just never made them, or on cassette. You had to buy them on vinyl. So just a kind of a good plug on why the importance of vinyl. I know I'm kind of preaching to the choir here, as this is a vinyl community video, but it's an argument you can make to friends as well. But again, this is Johnny Cash, From Sea to Shining Sea. This one is mid-70s. I can't remember when it was. Maybe 76. Really good album, though. From Sea to Shining Sea, Call Daddy from the Mine. Cisco Clifton's Filling Station is a good one. The Walls of a Prison. Just some really good songs on here. No hits off of here. But Johnny Cash is one of those artists that I'm so glad even his stuff that was huge hits is amazing. But even the stuff that I mean, even stuff like this that you've never heard before, it's all amazing music. And the reason this one didn't do well is this came out within a couple of months of Folsom Prison. So Folsom Prison was blowing up, so this album kind of got overshadowed. But I feel like there would be a couple of hits off of here had Folsom Prison not come out at the same time. Next up, Loretta Lynn. This is a kind of a funny album. Another good example of stuff you can only get on vinyl. This is actually a promo album that was done in. It was put out by Alice Chalmers Tractors, and from what I understand, you could only buy this at Alice Chalmers dealerships. And she talks a little bit about. At the beginning of the album, that her and her husband only use Alice Chalmers. It's a quick promo, and then it goes into all of her hits. But you can see it was $2. I don't know if you can see it, but $2.95 at the dealerships. But you've got you're looking at country. You ain't woman enough to be my man or to take my man. Your squaw is on the warpath. Back to the country girl. God Bless America again. I mean, these are all huge hits for Loretta Lynn. And this is just a really well put together package. Next up, another classic album, Ruby, Don't Take Your Love to Town. Waylon Jennings. This is one of my favorite Waylon Jennings comps. I've had a couple of copies of this. I actually traded one of them to somebody not too long ago, so I was happy to find another copy of it. But just some of Waylon's best. Next up, David Alec Coe, Castles in the Sand. Let's see if there were any hits off of this one. Castles in the Sand was pretty good. Son of a Rebel Son, that was a pretty big hit for him. The Ride was really good. Cheap Thrills. So there were a couple of really good songs on this one. I've never liked this album cover though, with that big old, what they call them, 10-gallon hat. That's about an 80-gallon hat that he's wearing right there. Next up, Hank Williams Jr. Major Moves. It's a good album. I don't think there's anything in here that you can't live without, but the blues medley is pretty good, but solid album. I mean, Hank Williams Jr. is one of those guys that, I mean, he's like Johnny Cash. Even his albums with no hits, they're all really good albums. And then last but not least, this was a comp that I picked up. This was Steel Sealed. This one is an Austrian, I believe it's an Austrian pressing of this. It was also pressed in the U.S., I believe, with a different cover. But this is Willie Nelson and Johnny Lee. And on each side you have a couple songs from Johnny Lee and a couple songs from Elvis Presley from Willie Nelson. Let me see. None of them are really hit songs. They're just all good songs. I picked this up for like $2. So that's pretty much it, Vinyl Community, for part 2. It'll probably be a while before I do another country music update. I haven't bought much lately, and I'm still listening to a lot of this stuff. So that's it. That's pretty much it, VC. Take care and have a good one.